So very proud and happy to have with us Jay Young, who's a fourth-generation oil and gas professional. He has leadership teams with over 100 years of combined oil, gas exploration, development experience, and maintains an operating staff of industry specialists, including geoscientists, engineers, field operations, finance, accounting, and land professionals. He's the author of The Upside of Oil and Gas Investing. Jay Young, welcome to Ground Zero.
Thanks, Clive, for having me on.
I'm glad we have you on because I really need someone to clarify for us just what exactly is happening. I have a number of people who listen to my program. They're truck drivers. They were saying for the longest time they were noticing that diesel, of course, was going up in price. They were saying it was diminishing. We had Tucker Carlson say something about we had 25 days of supply. Today is that day. And now what has happened with diesel? It's gone down in price a little bit. They're saying that we have enough now. What happened at the last minute?
Yeah, well, good question. I think it was a media scare about the 25 days. Just bluntly, first off, let's just go there because I don't feel like we were having a huge diesel shortage anyway. But I mean, we are having shortages in the United States. We'll continue to have shortages in the United States, especially because we're not drilling for oil in the United States like we need to. Back during the Trump days, drill, baby, drill. We're drilling, and prices were going lower. And then after Biden and coronavirus and Biden, and we're just not getting back to drilling in the United States like we were before. And there's several reasons, about the policies that are being put in place. And there's a lot of money that's dried up in the markets. There's just no support for the oil and gas industry. So therefore, our production is still down. And when our demand goes up, which it will, electric cars are great cars, and yes, it would be great. That's all great, and it will happen more in the future, but not anytime soon.
Right.
Oil is used for a lot more things than just gasoline for cars anyway. But we're seeing a huge, demand coming back in the world. And when we don't have the oil, we need it. And Saudi Arabia just, I don't say puts up the finger. I probably can't say that on your show. Well,
yeah, they put the finger. They did flip us off. And, Biden went to Saudi Arabia and failed miserably in trying to get them to be, kind with their oil reserves. They said no. And now, of course, Saudi Arabia is all chummy with Vladimir Putin and President Xi. And we stand there with our teeth in our mouths, still wanting to push a lot of our fuel towards Ukraine. And they're doing it, of course, to Europe as well. And we have fears that Europeans are going to struggle this winter and a lot of Americans are going to struggle this winter.
Yeah, exactly. We didn't have the oil from Russia that we need to make diesel. That's the kind of oil that we were getting from Russia. And obviously the Keystone Pipeline, which would have replaced that oil from Russia, we didn't. Biden shut that down as well right when he got into office because he's obviously against fossil fuels.
What about the problems with the Colonial Pipeline? Did that affect anything?
Everything does. Everything does. When you shut down pipelines, there's been a lot of pipelines shut down. You're hurting. You're putting trucks on the roads. They're tearing up the roads that you're using more, oil, but you're not transporting it. You can get so many more barrels of oil through a pipeline than you can from diesel trucks. It is crazy. Mm-hmm. And the scare that we've had the last, like you said, 25 days ago, they said we're running out, and I always believed that was just a scare. Media has to sell something. Going back to, the Y2K or all these different things that we've had, that the media scares us with, I believe that was a scare.
But weren't we really? Jay, I know I get the feeling that yes, it was a scare. That's one of the reasons why I want to investigate it and talk about it on this date. But I want to though point out, and maybe you know this, or maybe this is not true either. They were on edge there for a while in October, wondering how we're going to keep up with the demand of diesel, and that's why I get the feeling that there was a last minute attempt at trying to bring up the diesel reserves and lowering the price just a bit.
Yeah, and that's true. But oil comes out of the ground, and it is made up into so many different products. Yeah. And there's a special oil that's needed for diesel. It's not just any oil that comes out of the ground. The Ched Clampett oil is used for other things and other products, and gasoline or diesel is a heavier type crude. And I believe that we did something in there to transport more of this oil that we needed for diesel, because, it's like West Texas. There's a lot of oil out there, obviously in the Permian Basin. Majority of that is good for diesel. And, I don't know if it's administration or what happened there that did something or not. I don't even know if they did something, but something happened to where the price started coming down. And I believe the price is going to come down. But I'm also really, really concerned about where oil prices are going the next 3 months or 6 months, because the numbers are there, but we're just not drilling for oil in the United States like we were before, Biden. And when we don't have oil and we need it, obviously the price is going to go up. That's what my scare is, not necessarily. Yes, I was worried about the diesel shortage, for a little bit, because I know there's a lot of people driving diesel. I mean, our country's run on diesel.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's run on diesel. So we needed diesel really, really bad. And our refineries, I'm sure, did something right then to, make more diesel products, which is great they did. I believe it was them that took us out and made more oil, made more diesel. So that was good for the economy. But I'm also really concerned about, about gasoline, but other products that are needed. So I think we I don't say dodged the bullet, because I do think it was a media scare, but I also believe that it was something that they did that made more diesel fuel, because, like I said, when you have oil that goes into the refineries, it comes out in different types of grades, and they can do things to help diesel, and I'm sure they did.
Well, I've been hearing also that due to a urea shortage, that we are also looking at possibility of DEF being actually running out of DEF, which is fuel additive that they put in diesel. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree with that. They additives are not good for diesel trucks long term, but anything that we are doing right now, and there is a lot of different additives that we could use, and that, hey, it is what it is. Let's don't upset the apple cart here. Let's make sure that we do have diesel, and let's make sure we have the additives, everything necessary to do it. I believe I think with diesel we're okay for a while. Right.
Because I was just I was concerned, because I know that DEF was one of the concerns that would impact drivers, because you look at how what they use is they use water and they use urea, and what it does is it converts nitrogen oxide into nitrogen and steam, and it's an additive that you put in the diesel exhaust so it doesn't create. They're doing it, of course. It's odd because they're doing it for a greener world, but yet they want to eliminate diesel altogether. And that's what really is the irony of all things. They want to engineer this crisis in order to freeze people into believing into climate change.
Right, exactly. and you've got to have products. You've got to have diesel. You've got to have the production, and that's where our country is really going down right now, because we're not producing oil. If you look at the production, U.S. production, U.S. rig count, U.S. all the different things that go along with it. Rig count from public companies. Yeah. I mean, public companies just don't have any reason to start increasing their production.
Right. And we were talking about how also we're not creating any more refineries. Jay Young with us, fourth generation oil and gas professional, leadership team of over 100 years of combined oil and gas exploration development experience, and is an amazing guest tonight. If you have any questions about the diesel shortage, gas shortage, energy crisis, or whatever, he's the man to ask. What we're facing as well is a point of what economists call demand destruction. Now, what demand destruction is what happens when prices for goods are so high that people can't afford them anymore, and so they just stop buying them. As prices get higher, demand plunges, and we've been seeing this. There was a Midwest fuel retailer claimed demand destruction has already started. Truck drivers and other observers have been writing me, telling me that they can't even afford it. They won't buy it. And we're seeing the pumps where there's no diesel, and they're limited to what they can buy. PolitiFact tried to do damage control today, stating that Tucker Carlson's report was false, out of context, or some other thing made up for cover-up. However, energy industry analysts claim there's no need for concern because there will not be a shortage of diesel fuel in the United States. The Joe Biden administration has asked refiners to voluntarily halt in exports to rebuild dwindling inventories before winter, and they've also asked them to increase deliveries of gasoline and diesel to the Northeast United States. Regardless if there is a shortage or not, the facts are very clear. The diesel supply did reach very low points a while ago, and they were on edge, but now they seem to be fine. Jay Young is with us, oil, gas expert, diesel expert, discussing the possibility of what might happen. Now, we still are putting the pressure on the diesel supply. And so even though the 25 days have come and gone, really, like you say, it was an alarmist thought to begin with, wouldn't we say, though, that with all of the demand that we're putting, not only for diesel in the war effort, but diesel for fuel, for homes, diesel for planes, trains, and automobiles, wouldn't we see, though, a diminishing reserve happening sometime during the winter months and even into the spring?
Oh, yeah. We're going to use a lot of oil during this winter time. And that's one of the challenges we're going to have going into the winter, going into the springtime, and then obviously with the summertime and people driving on vacation. So we are going to see a demand continuing to go up. And that's what I'm saying is I wish we were drilling more for oil in the United States. I wish public companies and all these other people would just continue to drill because and not because I'm sitting here. I'm in the oil business, and I wrote the book, The Upside of Oil and Gas Investing, and I enjoy doing it. It's about my family, and it's about different ways you could do that profitably. But when there's a lot of oil and gas companies, and I'll tell you what, I do agree with Joe. I call him Joe because I don't really agree with many of his policies that he's making.
Right.
And I should call him President Biden just out of respect, and I will. So I did agree with President Biden, a couple of weeks ago when he did say, hey, you know what? These oil and gas companies are making all this money, which is true. They're making billions and billions of dollars, and they're not putting it back in the ground. Now, he said it a different way. The way I look at it, and I'm a fourth generation. I'm in this business all my life. I love it. And normally when you have cycles go like this and you see that production is going down and then all of a sudden the price goes up and up and up, and then these companies make billions and billions of dollars, normally in a cycle, they start drilling again. Well, they put that money back to work and they start drilling, which oversupplies our demand, and then prices come back down. But we're not seeing it this time. That's what I'm concerned about here, because we're not these oil and gas companies. I listen to all these guys all the time, and I listen and we have our noses at grindstone and all this. But these public companies aren't going back and going, oh, hey, guess what? We're making all this money. Mm-hmm. It's time to go back in the oil business and start drilling like mad. Well, we're not seeing that right now, and we're not seeing it because they're buying back their stock. They're giving money back out to their investors, which, hey, great for them, great for their investors. But what they're not doing is they're not spending it going back in the ground. That's what they need to be doing to oversupply our demand.
Right.
And that's when I say, hey, yes, Joe, you need to tax these big guys. And if they're not going to drill, tax them and tax them over and over again. I agree with that wholeheartedly, because that's what would keep the price down or get the price down the next 6 months. But these companies aren't doing it, and that's what they need to be doing.
Would you agree, though, that we're looking at a pattern of demand destruction because a lot of people are just not able to pay for it? And so maybe that also is happening where we're seeing it's too high, won't pay for it, and so then we start getting a surplus?
Yes, exactly. I don't know about a surplus, but I do see demand coming down. But that's going to affect this as well, is China opening back up. Don't know when that's going to happen. We thought it was going to be by the end of the year. I don't know if it's going to be by the end of the year, first quarter next year. But when China starts opening up and they start driving cars and all this again,
right,
as much as they were before, because the world needs 100 million barrels a day, and right now there's some countries that can afford to give us some oil at cheaper prices. But when the world demand goes up, because see, we're not producing enough oil in the United States to be energy independent. I don't know where those two words came about, because
right,
we're not. We need 20 million barrels, like President Bush said. and it's 2006 daily address. We have an addiction to oil. We need oil, and unfortunately, we're having to buy it from countries that are trying to kill us.
Well, as you said, the oil is not just used for the car. It's not just used for the trucks. It's used in a lot of things. A lot of medical devices rely on oil as well. Let's go to Pat in Nebraska. Hey, Pat, you're on Ground Zero.
Yeah, Clyde?
Yeah, hi, you're on with Jay Young. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is Pat from Nebraska. Hey, I wanted to ask Jay about this. So we live in an organic world, and it's so we got water, ice, vapor. It's a cyclical cycle. It never disappears. It stays here on the planet. So 65 billion years ago, we had the dinosaurs, whatever happened there, and it destroyed the living organisms here, and it created what they call, with the Rockefeller called it fossil fuels. And I don't think that he really knew what he was saying when he did that, but it made it sound like it was a limited supply. So, we've got all this organic material from 65 million years ago, when they say that the oil was created by these, remnants of the dinosaurs and the plant matter. But you got 65 million years of that, and it grows, and then you have younger, drier.
So what's your question, Pat?
Well, my question is the water and the oil are renewable, and they just keep going. I mean, because we've got plant matter dying continually, we've got animals dying, and it just keeps getting pushed down. Is it really a limited supply, or is it renewable? Because I really think that this is a kind of like a climate, thing where they say that climate change, and we've only got 12 years to live, or whatever.
Right. Jay, it's funny he brings this up, because I remember talking about peak oil a long time ago, and there was a lot of discussion about the idea of whether or not it's renewable. What are your thoughts on that, Jay?
Yeah, there's only a certain amount of oil we have in the United States. The good news is we continue to find other ways to get out of the ground. I mean, when the peak oil demand was, we only had so many reserves until we started doing the horizontal drilling, let's say in Midland, Odessa area, Permian Basin. We were only producing 1 million barrels of oil out there. Well, this month, or maybe next month, it's going to be 5.5 million barrels a day. So there is only a finite amount of oil in the ground. The good news is, when we go to produce a well, there may be 1 million barrels of oil there in place. We only get 150, 200,000 barrels. We leave behind a lot, not because we want to, and not because we don't need it for our economics, but just because that's how much we can get out of the ground at this time. Right. There will be other ways in the future to get that oil out of the ground, and people are looking for that, magic formula all the time.
Right.
So yes, finite amount. We only have so many locations to drill in the United States, and if we continue on, we will continue to use that up.
Let's go now to Juliet in Montana. Hi, Juliet. You're on with Jay Young.
Hi, Clyde. Hi, Jay. A reporter, I think it was last week, asked Biden, what about, the gas and the coal? And Biden said, I'm going to shut down all the coal plants, all of them. And I have no plans for any future coal plants. Are they going to just flip the switch and then that's it? We're out of gas and diesel?
No, it is a long process. It's like oil. We're going to have peak oil demand in the United States for the next 10 years. Now, after that, I don't know what's going to happen. But we will have a demand, just like coal, they're trying to replace coal with some other forms of resources, but it's not anything that'll happen anytime soon. It's going to take years, if not decades, to get through with that.
Thank you, Juliet, for your call. Let's go now to Dan in Maine. Hey, Dan, you're on Ground Zero with Jay Young. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is global fascism is what they're masterminding at this point. Oil. The earth creates oil. It creates water. It constantly does this, and it has to do with the different weights of material rotating at different levels down deep in the earth. We have springs, if you will, in the Persian Gulf where oil and water appears and displaces the salt water. Ships can actually ground out because the displacement is different. But this global effort, this ideology that they have is driven by, it's very clever, and the ideology is Gaia through the UN. We have a governor up here in Maine who knelt at that altar, and it cannot do enough to see this follow through. The efforts for it's like piracy, if you will, where they declare a right as if it's a royal right, and they now they legitimize the piracy and they call them privateers, and they give them letters of marque. This is in times of old, but this is no different than what's happening today. It's all repetitive today. The big banks, and all the guilds own everything. And I mean everything. And America, grand experiment, teach the people or don't teach the people so that they don't know the superlative divinity that we have. And people lose track of this old effort for the old wealth to stay as it is, old wealth. You will be a serf, you will have nothing, and you will be happy about it. And how they deprive things on a continuous basis, you just have to look at the repetitive nature of this. Coffins, your homes become coffins. And because you're restricted because of fear, who has the fear? The very simple thing.
Right.
Medication such as quinine and zinc, as in tonic water and zinc.
Oh, all those,
for simple things.
For COVID and everything. Yeah, Dan, I understand your point. I really appreciate you calling in. That's another thing, too. When you're looking at, they're saying, 3 years now. They were talking at the G27 about 3 years, COP27 3 years about fuels. And they lower the curve for greenhouse gases and things of that nature. Don't you think they're moving just a little too fast? Don't you think that it's going to take more than 3 years to get people to adapt to the idea of electric cars and 15-minute cities and all the things they're proposing?
I definitely do. It's going to take a lot longer than that. And with California, there's a lot of cars out there. In Dallas, we drive around and may see one or two electric cars, and that's kind of an anomaly. But California, I was out there. Around the LA area, and it's just cars everywhere. But so I think it's just the necessary evil because you're tired of paying $7-8 at the pump. Right. So people have gone to electric cars, but electric cars do need oil. For the tires, they need oil for a lot of other things to make up that car. So.
Well, it's just something that we'll look into, and we'll always continually wonder just what's up their sleeve. Jay Young, thank you so much for being on the program tonight. Very informative. And if anything else comes down, I'm sure we'll be looking you up again.
Great, Clyde. Appreciate you. Appreciate you having me on Ground Zero.
You bet. You bet. Take care.